folks, this is the lesson for Unit 1, Lesson 6, and this is for our Grade 10 Applied Math. So we are going to look at the distributive property today. This is definitely something you've probably seen from Grade 9, but we're going to kind of combine this together with our gathering like terms that we've already done in Unit 1. Okay, so when we're multiplying a constant by our polynomial, the polynomial is anything with multiple terms like what we've got in these brackets here. We're going to distribute it, and sometimes we call this rainbowing it because these arrows make kind of a rainbow shape, into the bracket and collect our like terms. So the first step here, I'm going to multiply this 4 into the bracket, so 4 times x and 4 times 2y. 4 times x is 4x, and the next one, 4 times 2y, is 8y. Okay, once we get to that end of that bracket that I'm highlighting there, that's when we stop multiplying the 4. It only goes into the bracket it's right in front of, and then it's done its job. Now we're going to take a look at the 3 in front of the next bracket. It's going to multiply to the 4x and to the negative y. Remember, that's going to count as a negative 1y, and it's going to go until the end of that bracket. So 3 times 4x is positive 12x, and 3 times negative 1y is negative 3y. Okay, just like what we did earlier in this unit, we're now going to look for our like terms. So I see 4x's plus 12 more x's, and I see 8y's minus 3y's. So we'll combine those together using our rules for like terms, and we've got 16x and 8 minus 3 is plus 5y. And that's it for what we're doing today. It does get a little bit bigger than that, but it's the same idea. Okay, so here we're going to take this negative 5 and distribute it in. It's going to multiply to 3 different things in the bracket, so we should get 3 different terms in our answers. Be careful with the multiplying by a negative. That's going to change all of the signs. So negative 5 times negative 2a is positive 10a. Negative 5 times positive 3b is negative 15b. And negative 5 times negative 6a is positive 30a. Whenever we're done the distributive property, we want to check for like terms. So I see 10a plus 30a. That middle term, the b's, they don't go with it. So we're going to add together the a's to make 40a, and we still have minus 15b. Okay, so for our next one, we're going to take this negative 2. The negative 2 distributes into the 4x and to the 8. It does not keep going. When you see the end of that bracket, the negative 2 has done its multiplying job. You don't keep it going. So I'm going to change colors to show the arrows for the next one. The 3 multiplies into the bracket that follows directly after it. So the negative 2 doesn't keep going after this end of the bracket. Now the 3 multiplies into the next bracket. So let's see what we get here. Negative 2 times 4x. So these two make negative 8x. And then negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. Now we're going to take the 3 and multiply it by the 2x, and that's going to be negative 6x because the negative 2x, and then 3 times 1, so plus 3. Now again, we're going to look for our like terms. I've got negative 8x minus 6x and negative 16 plus 3. So those are my like terms. Going to combine those together with the x's. Negative 8 take away 6 more is negative 14x, and negative 16 plus 3 is negative 13. Next example, this one is the same process, just a little bit bigger. So we're going to take this 5 and it multiplies to everything in these brackets, in the first bracket. Once we get to the end of the bracket, so once we get to that closing bracket, that 5 is done its job. We don't keep multiplying past the end of the bracket. So 5 times x, 5x. 5 times 3x squared is plus 15x squared, and the 5 times the 1 is plus 5. Now, the next bracket has a negative 2 out front, so we're going to multiply this negative 2 into the x and the negative 5. So negative 2 times x is minus 2x, and negative 2 times negative 5 is plus 10. The last bracket doesn't have a number out front, but just a negative sign. We're going to make that number a 1. Remember, whenever there's no number in front of something, it really just means a 1. So that negative 1 is there, even though we don't write it, and we're going to multiply negative 1 times both things in that bracket. So negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x, and negative 1 times 4y is negative 4y. Now we do have quite a lot of like terms going on. I see 5x, now 15x squared, that's not a like term because it has an exponent. Negative 2x, and then negative 2x again. What else? I've got 15x squared. Do I have any more x squareds? Nope, I don't. I have just numbers. I have a 5 and a 10. And I've got a negative 4y. So that's a lot of different like terms to keep track of. We're going to do the yellow ones first. 5x minus 2x minus 2x. So 5 take away 2 more is 1x. You could just write that just an x. You don't need the 1 out front, but it's not wrong to put it there either. The next one, 15x squared. I don't have anything to put together with that. 15x squared. Then I've got these ones in red, plus 5, a positive 5 plus 10 more. So that's 15. And then the last one is in green at the end, minus 4y. And that's the end of that one. Okay, this last one is a bit of a challenge, but I think we can do it. So let's take a look. Here we've got this negative 2. It's going to multiply into the bracket that directly follows it. So I'm going to multiply this negative 2 in here, and then it stops. A lot of people will make the mistake of continuing to multiply and multiplying that negative 2 by something after the bracket. It stops at the end of the bracket. Then I also have this negative 2, and I'm going to multiply it in just to the stuff in the bracket. It doesn't keep going to the 11 though. So here, negative 2 times x, we get negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Now, I've got this 5x just kind of hanging out in the middle of the equation. That's okay. It's not multiplied by anything, so I just write it down again. Then negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And negative 2 times this negative 4x. Negative times negative is positive 8x. And the plus 11 at the end, it didn't get multiplied at all, so it just stays the same. Now I'm just going to go through and look for my like terms. Negative 2x plus 5x and plus 8x. Those are all like terms. So that ends up being 11x's. My other like terms, I've got just plain numbers. I have 6 minus 2 plus 11. So that is plus 15. And that's it for today. So that's just a review of the distributive property and using that to gather up like terms.